Okay. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this, guys. Alright, let's go. Okay, alright, sure. Alright, here we go. Alright, here we go. Whew. Gear 2 + 3 + 4. Red Jet, Giant Cannon, Elephant Kong, Gatling, Omega, Schneider. Ah! Hey everybody, how you doing? Tekking101 here. In today's video, we will be discussing some of Luffy's all-time strongest attacks. A few stipulations, though. Number one, we will not be including any ability that he has to have somebody else help him use. So, for example, Nightmare Luffy. Really badass form, basically Luffy crossed with the Incredible Hulk. I hope he uses it sometimes in the future. I mean, it's possible. Moria is back in the story now. However, not really something he could go into all by himself. Also, things that require, certain situations to be met, like his ultimate move that defeated Eneru, which was his golden rifle. Not very often Luffy's gonna have a giant mound of molten gold to get trapped in order to fling his arm at people, okay? Nami might have a lot of gold down there in the reserves in her treasure vault, and I wonder, by the way, I wonder where the treasure is kept on the Sunny, because you'd think, Nami would have, a secure place where nobody could touch it, it's like a James Bond kind of vault. You have to type in 36 different codes in order to get into it, and then it's like a facial recognition scanner that she had Frankie invent. Can't even really exist in the One Piece world, but it does for the sake of Nami protecting her booty. So yeah, that's funny. They might have some gold down there, but yeah, I don't think Luffy's gonna be able to bust out the golden rifle any other times. Unfortunately for me, this also means I have to exclude my favorites of Luffy's moves, which are of course the champion rifle and champion stamp when, Mr. 3 uses his wax powers to turn Luffy into, a mech. That was beautiful. One of the best parts of the Impel Down arc for me, and he was fighting against Magellan with the giant wax boxing gloves. So we probably won't get to see that anymore, which sucks. But here are some attacks, though, that I'm pretty damn certain you guys would all consider these are Luffy's best, okay? When he busts one of these things out, they may not end the opponent in one hit, but they are pretty strong. And this is in no particular order. I'm not going from, weakest to strongest, because all these techniques are very strong. And some might even debate, why did you include this one when this one is just basically the same thing but a little better? We'll get to those. But the first one, of course, I wanted to discuss, just throw it on there right now, is the Red Hawk, okay? So, Luffy is kind of limited with the kind of abilities that his story gives him, what I mean by this is, look at Naruto. Naruto has the idea of chakra, okay? So, Naruto, he usually just stays with his Rasengan, but he can do a bunch of different stuff with that Rasengan. He can you can combine it with the Four Tails and make a lava Rasen Shuriken, and you can make a steam Rasen Shuriken, and combine all these different elements together and stuff, and use different kinds of attacks. You can combine sealing jutsu with it, In Hunter x Hunter, you have Nen, which basically, as long as you have the correct type of Nen, you can kind of do whatever you want with it. Killua was a transmuter, and he wanted electricity powers, so he just kind of gets electricity powers if he just trains with it enough, okay? It kind of allows you to mold it in whatever kind of path you want it to be. Now, in One Piece, we have Devil Fruits and we have Haki, but it's not really that kind of free-form ability where people can just, begin to manipulate the elements at will. They have to get a little bit more creative in how they're going to do it. And Red Hawk is Luffy's essay on that, basically. He's just that's his one ability that he has that allows him to channel the power of fire and heat. So, because of Ace's demise, he decided to take inspiration from him, training at Ruskina with Rayleigh. It was explained in 3D2Y, it really showed Luffy learning the technique and using it for the first time against Burndy World. But if you take that OVA out of context, you can just imagine Luffy on Ruskina, a few months after Ace died, he's remembering his brother every single day, he's learning a little bit more about Haki, and he comes up with the idea of hey, maybe I can stretch back my arm and then retract it so fast that it lights on fire from the air friction. And you know for a fact, like, Luffy probably didn't explain it that scientifically. Luffy probably doesn't even really know the concept of, like, what air friction really is. Like, you know, at practice he does, you know, like, hey, hey, Rayleigh, check it out! I stretched out my arm and retracted it really fast and I lit on fire! And Rayleigh's like, that's good, Luffy. Use that in battle. He's like, I'm gonna do that to remember Ace. I'm like, sure you will, buddy. Okay, that's great. So yeah, that's his technique that he uses in memory of Ace. Okay, so he used this for the first time against Hody. It's a great way to finish off the first major story arc after the time skip. You know, it's sort of like a good bridge there, where it's like, okay, the Straw Hats were away for 2 years. They trained up, and here are all their new abilities that they're showcasing against the new Fishman pirates. I feel really bad for that pirate crew in particular, because it's like, you know, if the Straw Hats pre-time skip would have fought against the new Fishman pirates, you know, it would have been a lot more of a hard struggle to get through them. Not impossible. I think they could have still managed to worm their way through it, but after the time skip, it was just like, all right, men, let's get together and take over Fishman Island. And, yeah, Luffy just came out, you know, post-time skip, so it's like, you're not going to be able to beat him no matter what, Hody. I'm sorry, buddy. But, you know, he gets a few shots in, but Luffy finishes him off underwater, by the way. He manages to light his hand on fire underwater and then just boom, slam right into him. And every time he uses Red Hawk, it basically just blows a giant fire hole right through a person's body. You know, in Horty's case, when we first saw it, it's just like, holy crap, did Luffy just straight up cap somebody? Because it's just like, you see it. You see him punch him, and then, like, the fire and smoke just erupts from behind. Like, he just punched a basketball-sized hole in somebody's, like, chest or stomach. But no, Horty survived. It's just for aesthetic, guys. It's just for effect. You know, what really happened was Luffy just, he caused a tiny hole to appear in their backside, which is where all the smoke and fire came from, but it still doesn't make any sense because the fire was definitely, like, torching their organs, but you know what, it's fine. Same thing happens with Doflamingo, by the way, when Law and Luffy team up and they do that little trick where Luffy goes to try to punch him, and then, you know, Law uses his shambles to switch out the real Dofi, gets Red Hawked right in the freaking stomach, and you see the fire coming out of Dofi as well, but, you know, there's no hole. There's just like, oh, okay, that mildly hurt, damn it, alright, well, the fight's on now, Straw Hat. But yeah, Red Hawk, one of Luffy's finest, absolutely. Moving on to Jet Gatling. Alright, this is the finisher against Rob Lucci at Enies Lobby, of course. It is also one of my all-time favorite moments in One Piece, period. The build-up to that moment is beautiful. Alright, the way it is executed in the anime, it's fantastic. The soundtrack they have playing in the background, the voice acting is incredible. You know, and Luffy has used Jet Gatling in other situations. Like, he used it at Amazon Lily when Boa Marigold and Sandersonia were attacking him at once. Luffy just kind of, like, you know, jumped back and just, you know, and then Jet Gatling from both sides to kind of stop their advance. That was really cool. But the first time he uses it was incredible because, alright, he's got Gear Second. He shows off Gear Second at Enies Lobby. He's like, okay, it makes him move faster. All of his moves get a jet upgrade, alright? So it's like, alright, his moves like Bazooka and Pistol, they always get, you know, just faster than normal. But then you think about Gatling, which was a move that was already pretty fast. The whole point of Gatling was just a flurry of blows that just attack your opponent, right? So it's like, alright, well, what happens when that gets the jet upgrade? What happens is absolute devastation, alright? But I just still want to talk about the build-up to that moment where Luffy gets, like, I think it's 2 Roku Ogons, like, right to the freaking face by Lucci, and he gets dropped, and he's on the ground, and you know, he's just like, and Lucci, he's banged up as well, but Lucci just kind of turns and walks away, and he's just like, man, just stay down already. And then Luffy gets back up, he can barely freaking stand. He remembers all the things that brought him here to that moment. He remembers Robin's, you know, please, you know, I want to live. And Luffy just kind of has a moment where he just don't care about anything anymore. And he's just like, all right, you know what? Screw this. I'm beating you today, and I don't care. So then he just goes Gear Second and just launches. Like, his fists move so fast. You can see, like, the air break. You could see them breaking the sound barrier before you actually see the blows, like, hit Lucci. You know, just these, like, explosions that pop off in front of Luffy's body as he's firing off his fists at just ridiculous speeds. And Lucci doesn't even really have time to avoid it or do the Kami-e crap or anything. Lucci just kind of turns around, he's like, what? And then the next scene is like 56 fists. 56, did anyone get that? I hope somebody got that. But anyway, slamming into Lucci at like all these different angles all at once, and then just boom, gets pile drived into the wall. And is that enough? No. Luffy continues this as long as he can basically move. Alright, it's just like, I am going to do this. I am not stopping until my body just literally gives out, alright? And the voice acting in this scene, it's great in both respects. I kind of prefer the English dub more. Colleen Clinkenbeard, who plays Luffy, I mean, just listen to her yell. Like, there's that moment where he's just continuously pounding Lucci, and this goes on and on and on, and eventually Luffy just lets out this yell of just, like, the sheer pain. Like, it feels like his body is just being broken apart from the inside out. And then finally, it's just that one last blow. It just knocks Lucci through a wall, and he falls out onto a ship, and then Luffy just collapses, and he can't move after that from the crap he pulled off. Like I said, he's used the move in other situations before, but I'm gonna throw out the idea that the other times he's used it, it wasn't as powerful. Alright, because this was an absolute desperate move on Luffy's part. His back was to a wall, he was at his wit's end, he tried out everything against Lucci, nothing took him down, and Luffy's like, I need to end him. I need to finish off Lucci because he's the strongest. If he gets away, my friends are in danger, and this was all for naught, and he remembers Robin, and he's like, alright, screw this. I don't care what happens to me. I don't care what happens to my body. Even if this ends my life, I need to do it now. And so he just busts it out. Like, if this was like Mob Psycho 100, Luffy would stand back up, and it would just go like, 100% determination, Jet Gatling, and just like, and right after it was over, he continued it as long as he could, and then after it was over, his body was just wrecked. He couldn't even move, alright? It was certainly not to that point where he was fighting against the Kujas. It was like, yeah, they're attacking me, Jet Gatling to knock him back, but it wasn't like Luffy was in the same part of, desperation he was against Lucci, so I wanted to bring that up. Also, a contender for this was Elephant Gatling, which is a pretty cool move, which is, gear third with Haki with Gatling. However, I think this one's just a lot... This moment is so powerful, and the drive behind Luffy. I mean, he had it too when he was using Elephant Gatling, because he was trying to stop the Noah, but this is just more powerful to me, so I'm going with that. Now we have Giant Jet Shell, the only move in Luffy's repertoire, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe it's the only move that combines gear second and third in one technique. Kind of going along the same vein like in Dragon Ball Z. Remember when Goku learned the Kaioken and he fought against Vegeta, and then later on Namek, Goku goes Super Saiyan. Am I the only one who, when I was a little kid, I was like, use Goku, use Super Saiyan with the Kaiokens and defeats the cells, just do them both at the same time, you'll be invincible. Which, I mean, like, we can have our problems with Super, and a lot of them are warranted, but I am very grateful to Super for giving us that, alright? I was like, okay, good, finally, yes, alright, cool, awesome. And so Luffy, in this respect, after he learned Gear Second and Gear Third, two very different abilities. Gear Second increases his speed, Gear Third increases his size, and all that stuff. We thought, okay, that's cool. Can you use them at the same time? And I'm sure Luffy, once again, Luffy's a very straightforward guy. When he was fighting Moria, and he does his Shadow Asgard shit, and he's just like, Kishishi! Luffy's probably looking him on, and he's just like, alright, we're gonna need speed, and he's also huge, so I'm gonna be huge to, in order to take him down, I'm gonna have to be pretty big. And so Luffy probably didn't even think about the repercussions. Luffy probably didn't even think, like, can I do that? Can I do both at the same time? Luffy was just, screw it. He just Gear Second, and just like, alright, here we go! Hone Funsen! And then blows into his, bones, and he just turns his entire body into a giant bullet, and then uses his legs to Gear Second, just jettison himself into freaking Moria's gut, and just like a giant bullet just slamming into him in the impact, like, boo! And he just spews out all of his freaking, shadows after that. And, I think he uses it twice. I think he launches himself at him, hits him, falls, and he's like, one more time! And then BAM! And just keeps slamming him into it. Luffy really felt the burn after that technique, though. That one really went him for a ringer there. But yeah, he has not used that move since, which I think now, because Luffy has way better control over Gear 2nd and Gear 3rd post-time skip, he doesn't really need like kind of a really crazy high-octane move like that anymore. You know, because if he's fighting a really large opponent, Luffy can always just use, you know, his improved Gear 3rd with his Haki, or Gear 4th if he really needs to. That was the whole point of Gear 4th, taking on the giant animals on Rue Skyna. So, it probably doesn't need something like giant like Jet Shell, and it's like a detriment to his body. But yeah, it was really cool to see both of those gears combined to take down the main villain of the Thriller Bark arc, okay, in this giant Shadow Asgard's form, alright? I love the Jet Shell move, or the Giganto Jet Shell move. I want to see this again, at some point in the story. So, another move that Luffy uses during Thriller Bark, unfortunately, it's not Nightmare Luffy, although he does use it in conjunction with Nightmare Luffy, is Gumu Gumu no Storm. And this is Luffy's strongest move, before he learned his gears. I was gonna say before the time skip, but that's not true, because he eventually learns, like, Gear 2nd and 3rd. But before his gears, this was his strongest move. Just base, you know, Gumu Gumu no Mi abilities, okay? And he used this to defeat Crocodile. He also used this in conjunction with Nightmare Luffy when he fought against Oars, okay? But, very simple move. He basically combines Gumu Gumu no Fireworks, which is just like a random attack where he just attacks from every angle. He combines that, or possibly Gatling, with Balloon. Alright, so he inhales a bunch of air, and then, you know, his body's huge, and then he, you know, twirls himself like a giant screw, and then he releases all that air at once, so he gets flung into the air, but he's spinning when he does it, and then he just unleashes a volley of blows from every direction, and it just slams into the opponent, and because he released all that air, and the screw is happening at the same time, it's just a lot of force. Does it make sense from a physics standpoint? I don't know, but it looks awesome, and that's all that matters. He uses this to punch straight through one of Crocodile's strongest moves, when he creates that, like that Espada technique, where the sand literally becomes basically like solid metal, or it looks like solid metal at that point, one of Crocodile's strongest techniques. Luffy just, you know, jettisons himself up into the tomb, and then just starts bombarding it with these incredibly fast punches. Even though, like, honestly, even though he wasn't in Gear 2nd, his attacks, his punches in this state, because of the extra air that's, you know, propelling him, were probably as fast or close to as fast as Gear 2nd. So it was kind of like a compensation thing for that. It's just like, alright, well, he didn't learn Gear 2nd yet, but he has this move to allow him to attack extremely fast, faster than he normally would anyway. So yeah, Gumu Gumu no Storm, once again, haven't really seen these. A lot of these moves Luffy has not used more than a couple times. I'm pretty sure the Giganto Jet Shell he only used once. Red Hawk he used that, did he use that against Cracker? I don't even think he used it against Cracker. I think he just used it against Hohorty and Dofi. Probably used it again at some point, but he doesn't use these moves very often, which is a good thing, because if you use your final finishing move too much, then it kind of loses its luster. So Oda is very smart in not busting out, like, the King Kong gun every single, battle Luffy's in. Speaking of which, let's talk about the King Kong gun. Is there any other... There's one more attack after this that's Luffy's absolute strongest, okay? But first, we gotta talk about the King Kong gun, alright? So... if it wasn't for, I mean, I know I said I'm not going to do this from weakest to strongest, but the last one on this list is objectively the strongest, okay? You can't disagree, okay? So, King Kong gun. Allow me to show you this image. Do you know what this is? This is a fist, ladies and gentlemen. This is a fist. This is a hockey-infused, muscle, steroided fist. If it hits you, you lose, okay? Luffy decided, though, that wasn't good enough. You know, that wasn't enough fist. Luffy's grandfather's epithet is literally the fist. When you have that kind of notoriety, when you kind of have that fame in the family, you know, a fist like this, that's just mediocre, alright? You need to have something more. And so Luffy decided to create the King Kong gun, which... just look at this thing. Its fist is bigger than his body, alright? Which, by the way, got even bigger when he used his muscle balloon and went into Gear 4th. His body increases in size there anyway, and then boom, this thing is even bigger than that, alright? So using the enhanced elasticity from Gear 4th, you know, Luffy's regular Kong gun, as he takes his fist, scrunches it up inside of his wrist, and then BAM! And just releases all that kinetic energy at once. This is just making a giant version of it. very simplistic. Even Doflamingo kind of was chuckling at it, you know, like, this is your big final move. Like, Doflamingo at that point, he was pretty pissed at Luffy. He just wanted to end him as well. But you know Dofi was kind of thinking, like, my moves are better than yours. You know, what do you have? A giant fist. Oh, wow, that's creative. I have a giant spider web that I can use that can defend me. And I have all of these, I have an awakening devil fruit, and I can make all these little threads into these 16 holy bullets, and I have a really badass name for it. It's called God Thread. And all you have is a giant fist. Bring it on, bro. And then BAM! Slam! Done! Just done, alright? You don't need, like I said, Luffy's very straightforward. You know, you don't need a Getsuga Tensho. You don't need a super gigantic orbital galaxy Rasengan. You don't need it. All you need is a giant fist. It's crazy. And you know what I love is the way that he came up with it, because we get like a flashback to when Luffy came up with the idea, right? So Luffy's talking to Rayleigh and he's telling him about how, man, I used Gear 4th and I used Kongun against the giant beasts, and it worked on some of them, but there was one creature, I'm assuming it's the giant gorilla, because Kongun, you know? And there's one creature on Ruskina where the Kongun didn't even work. And Rayleigh's like, okay, well, Luffy, here's the thing. You need to come up with another attack. Okay, because Gear 4th really taxes your body. You need to come up with some other way to fight. You can kind of see that, like, Rayleigh was kind of, like, Rayleigh was not holding his hand with this. Rayleigh was there to guide him and give him some advice and learn how to use hockey and everything, but Rayleigh was not trying to tell him exactly what he was supposed to do. But in this situation, Rayleigh, you can kind of get the feeling like he was trying to steer him away. Like, Luffy, Gear 4th is very taxing on your body. You should probably come up with something else. And Rayleigh's like, I mean, Luffy's just like, his response to that is, oh, okay, something else. I have an idea. What if I blow more air into my muscles? And Rayleigh's like, that'll just be harder. I'm like, yeah, but it'll work. And you can't argue with results, you know, it worked. The one time he used it against Dofi, it worked. He didn't really, and that's what I'm glad, you know, Oda didn't bust that out against Big Mom or anybody. I'm assuming if he used King Kongun against Big Mom, it would have probably pushed her back. Kind of the same thing would happen when Jinbei used his Vagabond drill against Big Mom and, like, knocked her back into the sea. I'm sure Luffy's King Kongun would have had the same basic effect, but wouldn't have finished her off. But Oda was smart in not using it against her, because this is like, you know, you don't use the King Kongun and have your opponent live at the end of the day or survive at the end of that battle, alright? The King Kongun's a finishing move, right? It is. Also, in his fight with Katakuri, we got kind of the speed version of that. We got the King Cobra, which he uses in his Snake Man form, which I didn't put in here for the simple fact that, yes, the King Cobra technique is faster. Yes, the King Cobra makes his arm bigger, but it does not make his fist as big as that, alright? And so, obviously, it is inferior, simply put, alright. But I love the King Kongun, and I hope we get to see it again, alright? I'm hoping that the way that I'm picturing right now, in my head canon on how they defeat Kaido, is that all the supernovas join together, not all of them, like Beiji and everybody, they're obviously not on Wano, but like all of the, like Hawkins and Drake and Kid and Law and Killer and Luffy and Zoro, they all team up at Wano and fight against Kaido, and I want to see a combination attack between Kid and Luffy, where Kid creates, out of the scrap metal, he creates like a giant spike, like a giant nail, you know, with a flat end of the nail and then just a spike. And then he uses his magnetism to, like, throw it at Kaido, and it just, like, barely pierces Kaido's flesh. Like, it causes, like, because Kaido's skin is so ridiculously tough, or he's in dragon form, it doesn't even pierce his scales. It just kind of, like, it gets stuck in him, but it's just like a nick. Like, it barely gets stuck. And then Luffy jumps up, maybe Law helps him out, uses Room or whatever, gets Luffy right above it, and then he uses King Kongun and just, boom! Pounds that spike right into Kaido's body, and it just drops him. You know, I want to see something like that go on with the King Kongun, alright? Alright, so, are you guys ready, though, for the ultimate Luffy attack? I kind of already spoiled it with the thumbnail, but in case you're unaware, it's Afro Luffy! Let me tell you guys something. Do you know about the ultimate power that taps into the real soul of what it means to be a shonen protagonist? It's the Afro there, my dude. And you might be saying, oh, I know some of you right now are like, wait, whoa, Tekking. I thought you said you're not going to include attacks on here that require assistance from others. Luffy did not grow that afro. Luffy had to use the afro off of Foxy's ship, for God's sake. He can't go into Afro Luffy whenever he damn well pleases. The story would have only lasted right after freaking Davy back fight. No, I tell you. Because Brook and Yasuie, if he was still with us, God rest his soul, if he was still with us, he would tell you too, the afro isn't on your head. The afro is in your heart. And it's in your soul. And Luffy just hasn't gone back into that form because he knows it would make everything... It's the God cheat. It's the God cheat. You go on a video game, you're getting beaten down, you type in, click, up, down, AB, left, right, AB, start, whatever it is, and it's just like, you can't lose. It's impossible to lose. So yeah. Luffy's like, I could have used that against Big Mom. I would have finished her off like that. But, that would be an anticlimactic end to the arc. I could have used the Afro powers to defeat Kaido in one fell swoop, and I could have saved all of Wano right there, but, Luffy's aware people are excited for Wano Kuni. We've been excited for this arc for a long time. I mean, how would have it sucked? Like, when did Luffy fight against Kaido? What was that? Like, chapter, what was that? Like, 12 chapters into Wano? How much would Luffy would have known? Like, that would have sucked to just end it right there. So that's why Luffy doesn't go into the Afro form anymore. But make no mistake, it is his strongest form, all right? Also, you could also consider that a collaboration attack with Usopp, because... when Luffy activates the power of the Afro, that's good enough to just end the world right there. But if you have Usopp as your hype man, who is, like, the ultimate hype man, really, it's just like, okay there, Luffy, what you're gonna do is you're gonna go out there and you're gonna give him a left hook and a right hook and an Afro hook, and you're gonna defeat them. When you have Usopp as your hype man, you are, like, not even planetary level, you are galaxy level minimum at that point, right? Okay, so I'm just making sure we're all aware of this, all right? Now, I think because I opened this can of worms, the question is inevitably going to come up, what about Brook? Brook has an Afro too, so does that mean Brook is planetary level? The only obvious answer to that question is yes. Yes, he is. Let me tell you, when Brook finally taps into the true power of that Afro, he will grow muscle on his bone. Not skin, just muscle. He'll have the muscles of, like, Kenichi from Fist of the North Star, like Jotaro. Just super buff muscles, and just beats the crap out of the opponent. But Brook, I think he's a long way away from that to truly mastering his Afro. But if anybody could do it, I think it would be him. Him and Luffy, they could do it. Alright. Well, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know. Comment below on what your favorite techniques that Luffy has pulled off. What do you think his, like, objectively strongest move is right now in the story? I'm sure we're going to get, like, Gear 5th later, his Awakening later. They might be one and the same. So we'll get stronger techniques beyond this. There might be another form of Gear 4th we haven't seen yet, maybe, like Lion Man or something. Who knows? But for right now, I just wanted to talk about some of Luffy's greatest hits. So thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking, signing out. Red Jet Speed Giganto Gear 4th Schneider Cannon